Irving telling The Athletic on Monday that he is opting into his $36.5 million option with the Brooklyn Nets for next season. Now, earlier today, we had Adrian Wojnarowski on, and here's what he had to say about Kyrie's decision.
He ran out of leverage to get the long-term deal that he wanted, either in a sign-and-trade scenario or with the Nets. And I think those are really the two rails he was playing. And the third thing, the threat of going to the Lakers on an opt-out at their $6 million exception. And so Kyrie Irving did not give up $30+ million for next season. So he opts back into his deal with Brooklyn. And now, of course, he could be a free agent after next season.
All right, so that's where things stand right now. Let's bring our guys back in. Zach Lowe, Seth Greenberg joining me, and Tim Bontemps here. So, Tim, Woj said it. He ran out of leverage. Maybe that $6 million thing was not going to work out given all the money he would have left on the table. What does that mean for you in terms of where Kyrie is right now?
Well, right now it means he's on the Brooklyn Nets for next season. That's all that really matters, right? Obviously, we'll see what happens down the road with him, where things go. But for the Nets, this is what they wanted. They wanted Kyrie Irving on a short-term commitment in Brooklyn, which means Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn and happy, and this team is a championship-caliber team. The rest of it, all the noise around it, at the end of the day, the Nets have a championship caliber roster, and they still do because they have Kevin Durant on the team. And that was what all of the stuff about Kyrie Irving was about. Can they have Kevin Durant on the team and happy? And now they did it without having to give Kyrie Irving what he wanted, which was, as Adrian said, a long-term maximum contract extension.
So
instead, it's on a one-year deal. Now it's up to Kyrie to prove it.
So essentially, they played a game of chicken and they won.
That is exactly what happened here. This was a negotiation, a very expensive, high-stakes negotiation, where both sides were daring the other to give in, and Kyrie lost.
Wow. And so, Zach Lowe, what does winning now mean for the Nets? What does it look like for the Nets?
Yeah, the Nets won today. We'll see how long the win lasts and how long this continues. But yes, today they have Kyrie Irving on their team, which means they have Kevin Durant on their team. They still have Ben Simmons on their team. Yes, on paper, this team could do a lot of damage in the Eastern Conference. I just need to see it play out. And we'll go from there. But yeah, this is a win for the Nets. I still don't really understand why there couldn't be like a 2+1 compromise, a 2+1 deal like that. I thought that just made more sense for both sides. The Nets get a little more certainty that way. But this is where we are. This is a win, and now it's take 5, 6, 7, whatever it is, for the Nets to turn a theoretical team into a real team, because there are real teams at the top of the Eastern Conference who actually played together, have experience together, and so the Nets are now trying to catch up to them. We'll see, but I keep saying, yeah, on paper, Kyrie, KD, Ben Simmons, great fit. Ben doesn't have to create offense on the ball. He could be there, Draymond Green, all that. Okay, let's see it. Like, I'd like to see the team play first.
Okay, so that's where we stand now. And Seth, I wonder, what do Kyrie and KD need now? Because they've got championship hopes. It's championship or bust for this team in many ways. What do they need now?
They need to get Ben Simmons healthy and get Ben Simmons to be part of that big three. Everyone talks about having to have a big three. Well, you know what? They have a big three if Ben Simmons is healthy. You're going to see the best of Kyrie Irving this year. There's no doubt about it. Why? He'll play 70-plus games. Why? Because he wants a max deal. How do you get a max deal? You show that you're going to be available. You show that you're going to play at a high level. All right? He wants that. He didn't get it. He had no options. Now what they got to do is KD and Kyrie Irving have got to put their arms around Ben Simmons, not get him healthy, but hopefully he's healthy, and then include him. Because you cannot have a championship caliber team if your three best players, I don't care if it's high school, college, the NBA, any sport, if your best players aren't on the same page, you can't have championship DNA. So they've got to go and connect with Ben Simmons. If that means this summer, once a week or once every other week, go and spend time with Ben Simmons, they've all got to get on the same page. If they get on the same page and they are healthy, this is a very dangerous team. They probably need one more perimeter defender, I think. But besides that, this is a very, very dangerous team.
To Zach's point about the theoretical versus the actual with this team, to Zach's point about the theoretical versus the actual with this team, that graphic was amazing in that it said that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in 3 years together, including the playoffs, have played a combined 58 games together. Right?
Yeah.
That, for all the stuff we've talked about with this team, they've played 58 games out of, 200 probably over that stretch together. These guys need to be on the court. That's what this is all about.
But is that all this is about? I mean, we talk about there needing to be a culture. They needing to be accountable to each other. Is it just as simple as they got to be on the court together and we see how it plays out?
Yes. I think it's that simple. Because, again, we can't even guarantee that that is going to happen, right? For everything that's been said about this Nets team, we can't guarantee these three guys are going to be on the court. We don't know what the situation with Ben Simmons' back is. We don't know what the situation is with Kyrie going forward. Like, this is where they've been. They've been the championship theoretical team since Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving got to Brooklyn. Now, with Kyrie on this one-year deal, looking to get a max deal next summer, after everything that's gone on, it's time for this team to actually be on the court and play. And if they do, we saw the one time these guys were sort of together on the court 2 years ago, they were this close to beating the Bucks in the second round, and they very well may have went on to win the championship. For everything else that's happened.
Yeah,
yes, let's see if they're not going to actually be on the court.
Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
Well, you know what else happened in that same round of the playoffs is that Ben Simmons melted down because he was afraid to get fouled and go to the free throw line and hasn't played basketball in an NBA game since then, 14 months ago. Like, I just got to see it first. Who's the fifth guy in their lineup with Kyrie, Joe Harris, Ben, and KD? Is it a big guy? Is it a small guy? Is it Bruce Brown? Is Joe Harris? What kind of role does he have next year? How do they retool this roster? Because they do have some things to play with. I think the Nets are going to be busier in the next 4 or 5 days than people think they will be, trying to retool this team around these big three that we have never seen play together. And yeah, Kyrie opted in. He's now an expiring deal. I agree there are reasons for optimism that he's going to play 65, 70 games and play really well. I voted him All-NBA 2 seasons ago, so I guess count me as an optimist. But anybody in an expiring deal is in an expiring deal. You got 1 year to make it work. Drama is always possible. We'll see what happens.
I feel like drama is probable with this team.
I would say definite, not probable. It's just a matter of how much.
It's probable, but it's in its best interest not to be probable. The most important thing is Ben Simmons is healthy. If Ben Simmons is healthy, and there's a standard and accountability amongst those three guys, there's got to be a standard and accountability. That starts up top with general manager, coaching staff, and everyone else. If there's an accountability and you have those three guys healthy, you have a chance to have a special team. They need a little front court help in terms of rim protection, and they probably need a perimeter defender. But the pieces are there. But there's got to be an accountability and the standard of expectation of how we're going to carry ourselves each and every day. And I don't think the Nets have had that. That's a big part of creating a winning culture.
Yeah, all that being said, it still comes back to the fact they just haven't been on the court.
No, but do you think they have that winning culture, though? Because I think Seth has a really good point here.
There are
so many good teams in the East.
You can't have a winning culture if you're not on the court.
Okay.
That's what this comes down to.
So you're saying that's step one?
Yes.
Step
one is, to Zach's point, Ben Simmons hasn't played in 14 months. Kyrie Irving, we didn't know where he was going to be 24 hours ago. We're still not exactly sure, but for now he's in net and he's signed for next year, right? Let's see them actually be on the court. They played 58 games in 3 seasons. It's 19 games a season, including the playoffs. That's no games at all. So let's see if they can be on the court for 60 games this season. That's the first step before you get to any of this other stuff about having structure and culture and everything else. Just actually be on the court playing basketball.
It's a great point. I love this graphic, by the way. Keep this up for just a second. That graphic that just came up about the notable Nets players. And Zach, you look at this. Ben Simmons, Kyrie, KD, Joe Harris, Seth Curry, each hitting 44% on threes. I mean, this to me, like you say, on paper, looks like a team that should win the title. Is that the ceiling? I know you're saying it's not an actual squad yet, but are we looking at a title winner if these things come together?
So Giannis Antetokounmpo just heard you say that team looks like a team that should win the title, and looked at his TV screen and was like, oh, really? That team should win the title over us? Jason Tatum just looked at that screen and said, they're going to win the East over us? The Warriors, Draymond Green, you better hope Draymond Green didn't hear you say that, because he might come after you on Twitter. Like, that team should win the title? Should? Maybe. Like, I think that's a great lineup. If you put shooting around Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, and Kyrie Irving with Seth Curry and Joe Harris is like 2 of the best shooters in the world, yeah, that lineup is going to be unstoppable. You're not going to be able to guard that lineup. Is it going to be able to guard the other best lineups in the NBA? Will it even matter? Will they just be so good offensively that it doesn't matter? I mean, we'll see. But I just can't anoint them like that. By the way, are we sure that they're going to have all those guys on the team next year in terms of Curry and Harris? I think it's going to be interesting to see what the team actually looks like next year.
In terms of ceiling, sure. But again, let's see them actually be on the basketball court together.
Yeah,
let's see that first.
You guys all just heard that part. So we're going to do this with you, Zach. I'm going to throw out some scenarios. You're going to tell me if you like them or not. John Wall is expected to join the Clippers. Like it or don't like it?
Like it, even if it's going to cost them a good backup center and Isaiah Hartenstein. But John Wall's a good fit. He has a dynamism that they haven't had, just like quick north-south guy. And when they play 5 out with no center, which I think they're going all in on, good luck staying in front of all the off-the-dribble creation they have now. Like it.
Oh, if he is healthy, he is dangerous.
People also forget John Wall, terrific guy setting up three-point shooters. Those spread lineups are going to be killing.
Oh, absolutely. What about Zion getting the rookie max extension? Like it or don't like it?
Love it. I suspect the Pelicans will try and negotiate some injury protections like the Sixers did with Embiid. But you're the New Orleans Pelicans. You're a small market team with no history of winning. You cannot quibble about a guy like Zion Williamson despite the injury and conditioning issues. You just do it and move on.
Okay, let's talk about another guy we're always talking about. James Harden gets a max extension. Like it or don't like it?
Are we talking about a 5-year max here? Because I think the only people that would really like that are James Harden and like the 10 closest confidants to him. James Harden is almost 33 years old. He didn't look like the James Harden of old at all last year. We really haven't seen that guy other than glimpses of it in Brooklyn when he was early. So I just don't think that's in the cards. A shorter term max or an opt-in and a couple years tacked on at the max, that's fine. That's Joel Embiid's championship window. Let's go now. You just can't attach yourself to a $55, $60 million James Harden deal when he's 37, 38 years old.
Just to even think about that boggles the mind. So, Tim, let's stop down and talk about Harden. What do you think is the ceiling for Harden and the Sixers?
Well, I think the ceiling, those are two different things, right? Let's start with Harden.
All right.
If Harden comes back with his hamstring whole offseason to work out. Last year, he was not the player he was before he injured his hamstring in Brooklyn. But remember, those first 2 months of Brooklyn, he was a top 5 player in the league. He was an MVP candidate, even after the ugliness that came with his Rockets exit. This offseason, he has said he needs a full offseason to be healthy and ready to go after going through the season not feeling 100% with that hamstring. Can he get the burst back that he had before? If he can, he's a top 10 player in the league again. If he can't, he's the player he was last year, which is still a very good player. And that's why I think the Sixers have a chance to be an elite team in the East after this offseason. I love the DeAnthony Melton trade. He brings them athleticism, defense, and rebounding, 3 things you know as a Sixer guy they did not have a lot of last year. And they have now the ability to go into this offseason, make some moves, add another piece maybe with the full mid-level exception. Daryl Morey has proven time and again he's good at finding value up and down the roster and from unknown places around the league. And remember, this team got to Game 6 of the conference semifinals with Joel Embiid having a broken face and a broken thumb, and with just a few months of James Harden probably not being, even if he's a little better, than he was last year. So I think with those two guys, with Tyrese Maxey getting better, with the pieces around them, I think the Sixers have a real chance to be a factor in the East.
So you think they can be an elite team even if he's not a top 5 guy?
They have arguably the most dominant player in the league in Joel Embiid. And James Harden fits well with him. Tyrese Maxey fits well with him, and they're going to have a whole season to optimize that roster around Joel Embiid in ways they even were not able to last year. So yes, I think they can.
Okay, so Seth, I'm a Philly guy, so I'm inherently negative. I don't know if I'm believing that. Are you buying it?
I am buying it, but the key is James Harden getting in world-class shape. When you're injured, you cannot get in shape, but you cannot improve unless you're in shape. And we haven't seen James Harden at his best. Here's a perfect example. He shot 49% on layups and dunks last year. What does that mean? He didn't have a burst to get by people, and he didn't have any lift to play through contact and finish. So first and foremost, if he's healthy, he's got to get in world-class shape. If he can get in world-class shape, then he can get downhill. The game becomes easier. DeAnthony Melton, I think, is a huge get because it's a perimeter guy that can defend, rebound, get in the lane, and make plays. If they get P.J. Tucker, now Melton and Tucker are Doc Rivers-type winning players to surround Harden and Harris and the other pieces they have with Embiid. All of a sudden now they become a factor to win the East and maybe compete for a championship. Embiid could be maybe the toughest matchup as a front-court player in the NBA. So I think that is the makings of a championship caliber team if Harden is in great shape.
But here's the thing, and I'm glad you made that point at the very end, if he's in great shape. Zach, we're talking about Harden being in world-class shape and being a top 5 guy. Do you see that happening with James Harden?
Top 5, no. But look, the Sixers are my siren song. I can never resist the Sixers. They just keep luring me in. And I kind of think we're all sleeping on the Sixers a little bit. I agree. You called me an optimist last week when I said I'm closing the door on Harden as a top 5 guy, but I'm not closing the door on Harden as like a third-team All-NBA level player. The Harden-Embiid pick and roll was the single most efficient pick and roll in the entire NBA after the Harden trade. A full season, like Tim said, to figure out how Maxey can best play off them, to figure out how DeAnthony Melton fits in. Maybe PJ Tucker's coming. I really, really like this team. I think they have a chance to be really good. Embiid is that good. And if Harden can, look, top 5, forget it. I don't think we're going to see that again. But if Harden can be in that conversation for a third-team All-NBA, that's enough. And yet, I keep coming back to what we just saw. James Harden disappearing in an elimination game again and then making excuses about how the ball didn't find him. I've just seen that movie so many times that I don't know how much I'm going to be able to believe until we see that guy come through in an elimination game in a big way.
You have just explained the plight of every Philadelphia fan in history right now and how we feel. Thank you for encapsulating our feelings.